Hi everyone, Zach Probst here. Just want to make a interruption about this video. I have a special announcement to make. As of this video I posted here, I am currently in the working progress of signing up on Twitch. That's right, folks. I am signing up on Twitch. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the setups that Twitch operates is you need the right equipment, you need the right software, and figuring out how everything works. So it's a lot like how YouTube does, like how everything works out. However, Twitch is a little bit more time consuming. For instance, a lot of the content that I needed, I don't really have. Like, I don't have the opening background. I do not have in any credits or any of the pop-ups that pops up in the screen when other live streamers watch as well. I really do not have anything to use for. So some of you guys thinking like, oh, why don't you just go online and get it? And I was like, well, I was hoping some of them would be free, but unfortunately, a lot of them you have to pay for. And it's not like $12 and then it's yours. It's $12 on depending which one you get. It's a monthly basis. So sadly, I would have to do things on my own designs instead of purchasing someone else's designs. And mine doesn't really need anything special type of openings. It just needs backgrounds, credits, titles, kind of all organized. Here's the problem. I do not know anybody who has Twitch, like in person. I don't know anybody who has Twitch. So I'm trying to figure everything out on my own, and it's just going to be very time consuming. So that's my announcement, and I will let you guys know on YouTube when I will be available on Twitch, and I will also tell you when I will be streaming. There may be times I'll be streaming off and on, but that's mostly kind of a test footage just to make sure everything works out. But I will make a official announcement for my first live podcast. So you will definitely find me on Twitch, but it is a work in progress. So that's my announcement, and sorry to interrupt your guys' show, and I hope you guys will understand of the direction I'm going for, and just trying out something new. And so, without further ado, next episode of Podcast. Enjoy. The following content of this show may contain strong language may not be suitable for younger audience. You have been warned. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Zap Chat. I'm your host, Zach Probst. Today's topic, we're going to be discussing about one of my favorite heroes of Hollywood business is Jackie Chan. Though he's technically not like an American type of hero, he is an international hero. So Jackie Chan is my hero. Let me tell you a little bit about him because this is our big topic today, and this is going to be a pretty big one too. Now, before I move on to this, I don't know if you can really tell where I'm sitting by just the sound of it, but my dad and I just got a new couch, and I wanted to sit the new couch while I'm doing my recording. And also another reason is I'm recording this in the very beginning of September, and it's still really hot outside. We have no air conditioner whatsoever. We only get like cool air coming in of the vent, but no AC whatsoever. Our house is not really made for that. So that's why I wanted to do my recordings out here while my dad is at work all day. So I really wanted to do more of a cozy, relaxing recording. And the reason why didn't want to do it in my bedroom is because my bedroom gets really, really hot fast, and my technically a walk-in closet. I have a bunch of acoustic foamy pads that I put in as well. For those of you who don't know, I put a bunch of them in my closet whenever I'm doing my recordings for a possibility of doing my voice acting career. The voice acting career hasn't really been going forward as much because I'm just been distracted of too many options in my life, and it's been difficult and stressful, and I really want something to, easier and fluent and all that. So I'm actually working on putting things to a close to set those stuff on the side and focus on this. So that's technically what I'm going through right now. But anyways, yeah, I just want to sit on the cozy couch because it's so nice. So anyways, that's why I just want to do the recording. Now then, let's talk about Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan has been in my biggest hero in my childhood. If I can remember my very first movie that I've watched, it's really hard to tell. I've watched a lot of martial arts movies as a kid that are more of a kid friendly, or I should say family friendly, in some of the martial arts movies. If I have to guess, I think maybe my first movie that I've watched, like it was on TV program. I could be wrong, but I think the first one I ever watched is Rumble in the Bronx. Rumble in the Bronx has always been close to my heart because that one is very 90s. And as you may know, I'm a 90s nostalgic kind of guy. So watching the whole thing, just everything, the whole tone of it is very 90s. And I love this movie so much. And other ones that I remember first watching is Jackie Chan's First Strike. And that one was also another great movie, too. I love that one. And if I have to pick a favorite, that's pretty tough. I think it would have to be Police Story. I think Police Story might have to be the by far the best action scene in the whole movie. I would say Rumble in the Bronx is still in the favorable show of mine, but this is, well, it is it is what it is. But I have one too many favorite Jackie Chan movies. I have one too many of them. And speaking of, we're going to be discussing a little bit about him as we go along. So, for instance, Jackie Chan is a martial artist, an actor, film director, producer, stuntman, and, believe it or not, a singer. He started doing smaller roles at the age of 5 for acting. None of them I would really know of. They're just mostly a lot of foreign films that he did in his very early ages, but I've never really watched any of them. At the age of 17, he became a stuntman and started working along with Bruce Lee movies. Huge known as Fist of Fury and Enter the Dragon. Now, for Enter the Dragon, you might see him as just a glimpse, like just a small cameo that he did, in fact, appeared in the movie. But you just see him just a quick snippet of it. Watching many of the Bruce Lee movies, I would say Enter the Dragon is by far his best movie achievement he's ever done. The rest of the movies have been pretty well as well, but I barely watched those as much as Jackie Chan. So if I have to watch a Bruce Lee movie, it has to be Enter the Dragon, by far. One of my another favorite Bruce Lee movies. His first leading role, and going back to Jackie Chan, his first leading role was called Little Tiger of Canton, but it hadn't been popular when it came out. Then as time goes by, for what I've heard, there's a famous choreography who did I can't remember his name, but he was a famous choreography who did the fight scenes for The Matrix, and he did like many other martial arts movies, and he was able to support Jackie Chan to help out of his career. So without him helping Jackie Chan, then Jackie wouldn't be doing many of the movies that we all know as we were kids. So they brought him in to do his first movie. Or his first better movie, I should say. Oh, actually, I have it right here in my notes. It says, after the movie Jackie Chan did called Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, a film director, Yun Hu Pin, allowed complete freedom to do his own stunt work after, let's see, after that, headed to Drunken Master. So, yeah, Yun Hoopin is the man that helped out Jackie Chan. Yeah, I probably need to look at my notes a little bit more often. Um, Here's a problem. There's such a long story and history of Jackie Chan. I can't really cover up the whole thing because there's just so much to talk to. So instead, we're just going to be discussing a little bit of his past that I wanted to share, and also the movies that I remember watching as a kid, and so forth. So in the 70s, they were kind of struggling to get into movie business, but after Bruce Lee died, many martial arts movies were kind of in a struggle to keep it going. But in the 80s, it was starting to make a shift in some way. For Jackie Chan, he started doing American films. Let's see here. He did The Big Brawl, in other words, Battle Creek Brawl, depending where you're from. And then he did Cannonball Run 1 and 2. And then he did a movie called The Protector, which unfortunately that one became a commercial failure. It did not do too well in the box office, and nobody's ever really heard of Jackie Chan that much. And Jackie was still pretty new on how Hollywood works. So at that time, I think Jackie Chan was way ahead of its time in America, so not many people know about him. But The Big Brawl, or in other words, Battle Creek Brawl, is actually a fantastic movie, but nobody's ever heard of him at that time. Everyone knew him as like, oh, is that Asian guy from Cannonball Run? That's how it was back in the day. And no, I've never seen Cannonball Run because I just don't really have a strong interest in that movie. I just don't. So to discuss about The Protector, why did that movie become a commercial failure? Well, for starters, nobody's never heard of Jackie Chan. And second, there's been some creative differences. Jackie Chan wanted to do his own way of fighting skills, but from a producer and director, they wanted their way. So many of the fight scenes was a bit of a toss-up. In American releases, we saw a little bit more like typical buddy cop movie that we all seen, like Lethal Weapon and Police Academy. Just, you know, those types of buddy cop movies, I should say. It wasn't really funny. There were some funny moments, but it was mostly a dark buddy cop movie. And it didn't really quite work well in this movie because back then there was just one too many buddy cop movies. There's just one too many, and we can't really keep up with it, for anything. We just only keep up with the ones that we liked most. They did actually release the Jackie Chan cut, which is a more a direction that he wanted to do, and you might be able to watch it on YouTube if you can find it. But there is an actual original cut of Jackie Chan doing his stunts, and it was about mostly speed. He fights so fast that audiences can't see it, and there was a lot of issues for those. So in American releases, they made it kind of slow fight scene and make it more brutal kind of way. But if you watch Jackie Chan original fight scene, that was the original fight scene that they were going for, but they couldn't. But as Jackie Chan went back to Hong Kong, he started doing his own movies. So Jackie Chan became a much bigger star in East Asia, and in 1983 he did Project A and won an award for Best Action Design. And Project A, I remember watching that as a kid, and I remember liking it. A lot of good fight scenes, and the story, I was like, it was okay. It was definitely one of those Jackie Chan movies for sure. And the others are Wheels on Meals. I just watched Wheels on Meals the other day, and I love that movie so much. Was so impressed of Jackie's skills, of how fast he is. In that movie, it was proving the audience of how fast he can fight. And if you watch the end of the movie, you'll see how fast he can move. And I was impressed of that movie. So Wheels on Meals, definitely a good movie. Lots of comedy. And the action, wow. Great action. I loved it. And Lucky Stars, I didn't really watch that one as much, but I remember watching it when I was younger, but I never really watched it over and over. It's one of those movies that you can't really find in stores as often as any other places. So for some unknown reason, Lucky Stars is not available to buy on DVD or Blu-ray in America. You might find some of the more older copies of it from the 90s. You might be able to find those, but in today's world, not so much because everything now is digital, which I'm very against it, which you can check out on my other YouTube videos if you want to hear my thoughts about that. So as time goes by, we finally get the movie that we all know of Jackie Chan, and that is Police Story. That's when his career started flooding with fans. Police Story has influenced a lot of filmmakers of Jackie's directional story of how he wants to make a movie. So he became the biggest success of his performance. That movie made so many action scenes, and there has been times that a lot of them were like really kind of a hard to watch kind of way. A lot of the actions were, it was very low budget. They had to make the budget what they could to make the stunts right. And by doing that, Jackie has his own team called the Jackie Chan Stunt Team, where he trusts his team to get the stunts right. And a lot of them was heavily involved in this movie, very much so. So for Police Story, there has been a number of stunts, like big wide angle shots of stunts. It's just incredible of how Jackie pulls it off. And I don't know how he can do it every day of this. It's just amazes me of how much he's willing to go further to make the movie good. Now we get to move on to Operation Condor. Now that one, this is going to be a bit tricky to understand, you guys. Operation Condor is actually another of my favorite Jackie Chan movie, but the mix-ups of the movies, they made two movies. They made Armor of God and Armor of God 2, Operation Condor. Now, the title is going to be confusing because in the Hong Kong era, it was titled Armor of God. That's the first one. And then the sequel is Armor of God 2, Operation Condor. Now, in America, we titled it Operation Condor. That is the sequel, but it's actually the first. Or it is actually the first movie, but they used the sequel first. And then they came out with Operation Condor, Armor of God, which is part 2 of the movie, but it is actually from the original. Already confusing you. So I don't know why they would do such a thing. I just don't get why. I really don't get it. But I would say Operation Condor, technically the sequel, is definitely the best one. The first one was good, but I would say the second one is definitely the much better movie, and it's more funny and more entertaining, and the ending had the best action scene, and all of that is amazing. Let's talk about some other movies that not many people know about. For those of you who don't know, there was a movie called Super Cop. That's the American release. But in the Hong Kong era, it is actually titled Police Story 3, that is actually, believe it or not, part 3 of Police Story. But in America, we call it Super Cop because the tone of it was just a little bit different. But that is actually the sequel for Police Story, and I did not know that, so I got pretty psyched. Now this one, an American release, have it available on DVD and Blu-ray, is a bit confusing. There's a company that they were able to release it on video cassettes, and later on came out on DVD. Now, the DVD, it's still owned by the Weinstein Company, which we won't talk about. The Weinstein Company was involved in making what's called Dragon Dynasty. And Dragon Dynasty has been releasing a whole buttload of martial arts movies. Like Police Story 1, 2, and Super Cop, and Crime Story, and a number of Jet Li movies, and even John Woo movies like Hard Boiled and The Killer, which is all fantastic movies. Oh my God, I would talk about Hard Boiled all day long because that movie is my favorite. Love the famous gunfight scene in the movie. The gunfight on that one's amazing. But anyways, Dragon Dynasty was releasing a lot of martial arts movies, and they even got a hold of the Jackie Chan movies, but not all of them on DVD. They were only able to release Police Story 1 and 2 and Super Cop and Crime Story. And the other ones are owned by somebody else. So there was a bit of an issue on Super Cop. A lot of them of the releases, they were releasing it like completely uncut, and they would take most of the deleted scenes and put it back in the movie the way it was meant to be, or just kind of a re-edit trying to polishing the movie, stuff like that. So for Super Cop, they were supposed to have that one to be uncut, but they weren't able to get an actual soundtrack that came out in Hong Kong, and many of the scenes got cut out was mostly drug contents. Many of the drug contents of the footage had be completely cut out of the movie, but a lot of people want to see the original, what was meant to be seen. But the company, Dragon Dynasty, in other words, Weinstein Company, did not have the rights for it, so they weren't able to do it. But a lot of people were bummed about that, and so am I. I want to see the original, very much so. Maybe someday in the future we would have this gigantic box set of Jackie Chan movies, of his best movies, but maybe someday. Now, to go back on discussing Rumble in the Bronx, that's when his career started to become a huge Hollywood icon, when he did Rumble in the Bronx. And when that happened, his movie career just started booming like crazy. So many people heard of him now, and a lot of people love him very much. And he's been doing a lot more movies since then. So to go back on Jackie Chan's first strike, believe it or not, that is actually Police Story 4. That might surprise you, but in Hong Kong, they is actually, in fact, the title of Police Story 4. Crazy. Later in time, he's been releasing some other movies that he did in the past, but wasn't as popular as everywhere else. If I have to pick off the top of my head, he did a movie called what was it? I think it was Thunderbolt. I think that's what it's called. Let me check real quick. I am right. There was a movie I liked a lot called Thunderbolt. I've heard stories about this one. Before he did the filming of Thunderbolt, he was busy filming Rumble in the Bronx, and he accidentally broke his ankle while he was doing his stunt. And when that happened, he couldn't do all the stunts of his own because he was, he wasn't able to walk. But when I watched that one, it didn't really bother me that much. He continued to keep going and going because he doing the things that he loves most is making movies. The action was good, but the race car scenes were really good. But it was a long time ago since last time I've watched it, and from what I've heard, it is actually a good one. And another big movie he did is called Drunken Master 2, but in America we call it The Legend of the Drunken Master, which is it sounds like a better title, I think. And that movie had like the best 20-minute long action at the end of the movie. Like by far, I would say maybe the best stunt movie of his career. Legend of the Drunken Master is by far the best action scene. Later on, he did a movie called Rush Hour, and he became such a Hollywood icon now. He started doing some more American movies. And Rush Hour is definitely my favorite. The sequels are good too. Like 2 is pretty good. 3 was okay. It was kind of more of a lighter side, not as dark. But the first one is my favorite. Love the first one so much. I do want to mention another favorite of mine is a movie called Who Am I? Now, Who Am I? I've maybe watched that one too many times as a kid. I remember I think it was either my dad or another my relative of mine that bought the DVD for me, and I've watched it a number of times, because I love that one so much. So again, the movie's called Who Am I? And the good news is you'll be able to get that on Blu-ray online, but the price is a bit high. It would cost you about $30 last time I bought it, and there's really no bonus features, but you get to have the option of different aspect ratio of the movie. And that was a bit weird in my opinion. Like the aspect ratio is it was like 1:78 or something. Basically, that one's like cover your whole screen, and it's in HD. But the original aspect ratio is 2:35, and that one's in standard definition, so the picture is not as great, which I find that a bit weird in my opinion. So I don't know why they released the Blu-ray that way, but I just wish they could have done better. Let's talk about something that's a little off topic. There's one of my favorite hidden gem games that I love so much, and that is called Jackie Chan Stunt Master. And this, it's kind of a movie, but it's actually a video game. It's a brawl fighting game, and I think games like some of like old school games you play, like Streets of Rage, Final Fight, those types of games. And I really love this game so much, and it's a little easy. And the story, it's not so great of a story, but the gameplay is a lot of fun. The gameplay is a lot of fun. And you can, if you're lucky, you might still get the game, but it's only available on the original PlayStation game. So if you want to get that game, that is the only way that you can play that. Now, as time goes by, like in the year 2000s, which was, gosh, now 20 years ago. My God, I'm getting old. He did Shanghai Noon, Shanghai Nights, some of the other like family-friendly movies as well. However, he felt frustrated dealing with Hollywood in America for limited roles and lack of control over filmmaking progress. And so he decided to have his own production called JCE Movies Limited, which means Jackie Chan Emperor Movies Limited. So he started doing his own producing movies. And don't get me wrong, Shanghai Noon, Shanghai Nights, great movies. He did like other movies like The Tuxedo, which is good, and then The Mandalorian, which is, I watched that not too long ago, and I forgot how the story is not so great. The action was okay, but gosh, the story was just not so great. So when Jackie Chan did his own movies, he released some of the movies such as New Police Story, and The Myth, and Rob B. Hood. He started doing those movies. Now, for what are my thoughts about those ones? Well, I watched New Police Story, and I loved it, and I actually have it on DVD. I was wanting to buy the Blu-ray, but I can't remember if I bought it at the store one time, but I think I found it at the store one time, and it was a good deal, and did not see the Blu-ray release anywhere, just the DVDs. But in my opinion, New Police Story is actually really good. Very different tone, and it's a little on the dark side, and showing the audience that he still has potential to keep on, fighting his own stunts. And he still got it at that time. Then he did The Myth, which was okay. It was mostly like a fantasy type story. And then Rob B. Hood is actually pretty good. Pretty good, decent Jackie Chan movie. But I've only watched that once, and that was years ago. I think last time I watched it was about 15 years ago. It's a long time. And then, as time goes by, in the year 2012, he announced that his movie called Chinese Zodiac. Believe it or not, Chinese Zodiac, I did some digging about this, is actually Operation Condor Part 3. So this is Part 3 of the franchise. And he also said that this Chinese Zodiac is his last big action movie. So he's still out there doing movies and acting as well. But Chinese Zodiac is his last big budget movie that he's doing. So he's gonna basically doing all the stunts, going big and go home, kind of way. And then after that, he's been doing a lot more smaller roles, but still does do action flicks, but not as big. We get movies like Police Story 2013, which is a very different movie, a lot more greedier type police story, very different, but good, but different. Then he did Kung Fu Yoga, which it looked weird, and then he did Skip Trace, that co-starred Johnny Knoxville. That was surprisingly good. I actually like that one. And The Foreigner, which starred Pierce Brosnan and directed by what's his name? I think Martin Campbell. Yeah, Martin Campbell directed movies like GoldenEye, Casino Royale, and The Mask of Zorro. That's what his best known movies he's done for. Oh, and Bleeding Steel, I've watched a few months ago. Sadly, I did not care much for that one. It was just too weird. It tried to make it like a Jackie Chan movie, but the whole tone of it was very UFO, supernatural type of fantasy, but it just looked weird. And I just don't know how I feel about that one. It was just like, I don't know about that. And now, if you want to know more about Jackie Chan, you can check out the documentaries that he's been coming out. I don't know if you can find it on DVDs and Blu-rays anymore, but they're really hard to find. But the good news is you might be able to find it on YouTube and watch it through there. So you have a better chance on watching it. So I would recommend watching Jackie Chan My Stunts and Jackie Chan's My Story. Those two I would highly recommend if you want to know more information and more about Jackie Chan himself. For all the movies that he's done for a long time, he's still making movies. And right now it's the year 2020. He's made about, almost like 4 or 5 movies a year, kinda. But a lot of them are like small time roles. He's got like new movies coming out as well, and I've not heard any updates of when would that be coming out. You'll be able to watch it. The movie trailer is online, but I don't know if it's available here to rent. I think it is, but I'm not positive yet. But you can watch it on YouTube to check out the movie trailers of Jackie Chan movies when he's got going out right now. So at least that's some good things to hear. Now then, now before I forget, I want to discuss about some of the more uncut takes on Jackie Chan. So for instance, when America releases a bunch of their Jackie Chan movies, they would always redub the English in the movie. So for certain movies, you'll notice certain actors, they are speaking English in the original cut, but they've been redubbed from a different English actor to dubbing his lips, which is really weird. I don't know why they would do that, really. And of course, they had to cut out like roughly 10 to 20 minutes of footage in order to get the American viewers to understand, because the way how international movie works, if they release a movie in China, then they have a different perspective, and they release in America, then they have their perspective. So sadly, some scenes had to be cut out in order to get the American viewers to understand, but sadly we won't get the uncut version in many movies. But we did get lucky on some of them. Like the more recent one is a movie called Mr. Nice Guy, and I just bought that on Blu-ray last year, and it is the original extended cut. I was so blown away. I'm just like, whoa, what now? And I was so shocked that it's owned by Warner Brothers. Also, Warner Brothers owns Rumble in the Bronx, Mr. Nice Guy, and Jackie Chan's First Strike. They own those movies, and they also own the Rush Hour trilogy. And I think that's pretty much it. That's owned by Warner Brothers. So, for Mr. Nice Guy, they were able to bring back the original cut of the movie and cutting out the redub of the whole movie. They redub with new actors of hearing their voices, but they cut that out. You'll be able to get to hear their original actors speaking on screen, which is something I've been waiting for years and years for seeing something like this. We're finally get to see the original Mr. Nice Guy and not the family friendly movie kind of way. So I was so pleased that Warner Brothers did this. I'm very happy for them, very much. I just wish we could see more of that in Jackie Chan's First Strike and Rumble in the Bronx. Because in Rumble in the Bronx, it was actually slightly more violent than they were going for. So they had to cut out just a little snippets here and there in order to get the right tone of it. But I believe it's still R-rated, I think. It might be still be R-rated. I could be wrong. I think it's still R-rated, but I think they kind of tweaked it a little bit to cut out a little bit scenes here and there in order to speed up the movie. But I just wish they wouldn't keep uh, the redubbed versions of it. I wish we could have seen the original cut of it. And same thing with Jackie Chan's First Strike. There was this certain scene that I want to share with you guys just a little bit. In Jackie Chan's First Strike, when Jackie goes underwater and fighting off bad guys, there is also a shark that they had to be aware of. That the shark is just wandering, swimming around in the water. And I was watching it on TV that was on broadcast. And when I was young, I remember watching that underwater scene. And there was about like another 10 minutes of extra footage added in the whole underwater scene. And I was like, I don't remember seeing any of this on my video cassette tapes. This is new. And turns out that you get to watch the extended version of the underwater scene only on TV broadcast. Would you be able to still find it on YouTube? Maybe, but if YouTube doesn't delete it, then you might be in luck just to check it out. Um, but the extended cut exists. We just don't have it available to be released in America, sadly. And there are many movies that I want to see the fully uncut version. There are many movies I want to see, especially a lot of Jackie Chan's original movies. Many of them, like I want to see the original Super Cop. I want to see the original, maybe Legend of Drunken Master and The Protector, and all that stuff. I want to see the fully uncut version of his old movies. So, that's pretty much all I got. But before I put the show to a close, I have one more surprise for you. Sadly, I don't really have a review because I got my hands tied at the moment. What I will tell you is I'm going to share with you another unaired podcast episode that I'm going to share with you guys. Now, again, this one, like the previous one, the audio has been completely scratched, so it's a bit scruffy as you hear it, so it's not that great. It's because I've messed up the audio technical program as I was recording it, and I did not, I didn't really get how the recording works back then, but now I do, and I'm able to double check and fix it and making sure I do it just right. But this was something I was going to edit, but I've missed my chance of finishing it because I just been too busy, and at that time was a bit concerned of losing my job from last year. And so I decided to go ahead and finishing up the editing. It's all polished up and ready, but you still get that scratchiness of the voice. So it's not great, but you'll be able to hear another podcast episode as a bonus for you guys. So without further ado, here is another of my unaired podcast episode just for you guys. Enjoy. I am very excited to talk about this next project here. This is a topic I did some thinking about. And also I want to point out another thing. We're going to be reviewing an anime movie that I had to rewatch and go back, rethink my head, and process it, and to talk about you guys. This is an anime movie called Lupin the Third: Blood Seal: The Eternal Mermaid. This was a movie that I wanted to review to you guys because this is recently been released on Blu-ray for the first time to be released here in America, and we're going to be discussing a little bit of it and give my thoughts, opinions, and tell you what the story is, a little bit of the story, since I don't want to spoil too much for you in case you want to see it. But before we do the review, we're going to be discussing a little retro anime tonight. So, the topic today of a retro anime is called Robotech. Robotech, I've actually been a fan for, I'd say, a good 10 years now. I first introduced to the anime show. This goes, oh gosh, this goes way back in 2011. I was watching the anime show when I was younger, and I was living in an apartment at the time, watching the show at the apartment. My dad is off work, and I'm at home for the next 12 hours, and I stumble across on Netflix, which was Robotech, and it contained about 85 episodes, which is basically all the episodes of the original anime show. So you get the Macross Saga, which is about, let's say, 36 episodes. And those are the episodes that I would highly recommend it first thing, because it's the original story that started it all of the Robotech series. So Macross Saga is the number one. And after that, the newer generation called The Masters, which I've watched it and I didn't really care much of the characters really. It just wasn't really my kind of tone of the show. However, the next one is called, I think, Robotech, or yeah, I think it's called Robotech The New Generation, which it's kind of like how they did in Star Trek The Next Generation, where they introduce brand new characters, a new tone, and a new look, and new excitement that's going on. So this Robotech The New Generation is exactly like that from Star Trek Next Generation. Funny thing, I should mention that because that also was the peaking point at that time. Because I believe New Generation came out, I believe, the same time as the Star Trek series from 1986. But I may be wrong. But it's if you think about it, it kind of took place in that same era in the 80s. Uh, and so I've watched all 85 episodes, and I absolutely loved the show. I love the Macross Saga, not so much on the Masters, but I love the New Generation. The New Generation I really loved a lot very much. They left out a cliffhanger in the end, which I was really bummed that they couldn't continue the story. But they eventually did, which they did an anime movie. I think it's called The Shadow Chronicles, and that one was made in 2007. And I really loved the story. I was really hoping they would continue on to move forward for the next story installment. They didn't make it as a series, but they made it as an anime movie, just so they can have high hopes on bringing the Robotech series back. But sadly, it didn't really do too well. It just didn't have enough interest, and not many people really know about Robotech. To be honest, in this day of age, not many people know about that show. It's really sad, but I was really digging the story and I wanted to continue, but yeah, they're just in this day of age, there just wasn't enough viewers. Nobody, like fans such as myself, nobody didn't have enough interest. A lot like the recent movie I just watched not too long ago. It's called The Terminator Dark Fate, which they bring back Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor. And they're going to have like all new characters, all new story, all new intensity to bring back. Speaking of bringing back, James Cameron came back to do producing the new Terminator movie since he got the rights back to hopefully
make future movies. But unfortunately, for what I've heard recently, it didn't do well in the box office and it just wasn't enough viewers. My prediction is two things. One, we live in a world right now that under the ages of 18 don't really know a lot about Arnold Schwarzenegger for of his action movies, and nobody really know about Hamilton, and nobody had a strong interest. And two, a lot of people are just sick and tired of watching another Terminator movie, and it's just the same typical story over and over. That's how people feel about, and nobody really wants another Terminator movie, which is sad because I really enjoyed the previous movies. Not all of them were great. I will say that not all of them were really great. But to go all the way back from the first one, that was like a cult classic movie. Then the second one became the classic Terminator movie, like Terminator 2 Judgment Day, that we all know and love. And then that's when James Cameron no longer was able to produce or write or direct any more Terminator movies. I don't really know the whole story about that one, but I think someone else got a hold of the rights of the Terminator movies and just went kind of off to do other things. So it was pretty sad. So we had, for the past 20 years, we've had Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, and this one was to introduce a woman to be the new villain of cybernetic model. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger did one last movie before he retired on acting and became governor of California. And I think he did other movies too, like oh gosh, what was it? It was some sort of Collateral Damage. I think that was his last small movie that he did before he became governor. And that's a great movie, by the way. If you look it up and go check out the movie called Collateral Damage, I believe that's what it's called. I could be wrong, but go look it up. Go watch it. It's a really good movie. You won't be sorry. It is a really good flick. And so after Terminator 3, it didn't really do too well. And then years and years later, we have a whole new movie. It's called Terminator Salvation, which is basically we get to see John Connor, like in the not too distant future era of watching cybernetic enemies just watching humans and machines go into war. And for years, I've waited for a movie like that. I've loved to see this movie happen because I've really wanted to see to see cyborgs and humans fighting off a war, and I really want to see that happening. When it first came out, a lot of people were excited. Christian Bale is John Connor, and I didn't really have an I honestly I didn't really have any problems with it. I know I'm going sidetracked to the Robotech, but I promise I'll get back to it. But I just want to make you an example on why it did not, why Robotech didn't do too well and how I predicted. So anyways, for Terminator Salvation, let's see, it came out in 2009. A lot of people, they wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger return, and they want James Cameron to return, and we didn't get any of that. And the copyright and license became a really big problem. And that was a time when the economy was in plummeting, and the marketing stock market was going down, and people are losing banks and houses and losing money and jobs. It was a very rough time. So for Terminator Salvation, I believe it suffered that as well for the box office, including at that same time of the stock market, it was also in the middle of a writer's strike, which was another big problem at that time. And so it was a really messy situation when that all happened. Like a bunch of TV shows were going canceling, and many of the writers were going on strike. And I don't know. It was a really rough time, and I even lost my home too. It was like a rental home that I used to live, and it was a real bummer. I wasn't I I remember was crying losing my home, and it was only a rental, and I've only stayed for about a year. I was so happy to have a house to rent until our landlord, I think she lost her job or something like that, and so she had to move back to her hometown, which was in California, and so she had to basically to start over, find a new way to get a new home. So that was a bummer at that time. And so for Salvation, it also hurt of a lot of the fans, including Schwarzenegger and Hamilton. They were not liking the Terminator Salvation at all. Nobody liked the movie at all. And I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it because I didn't really see any problems with it, but there may be some flaws that not many fans were really pleased about. So I may have to go back and rewatch it and see, like, okay, why was this movie bad? Because I gotta be honest, I didn't really hate it at all. I thought it was a good flick. Uh, Time goes by. We also had a TV show called the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and that one was also the same time as 2008, 2009 writer strike. I'll do this, I'll do that. Got a messy situation, and when I saw the TV show, oh man, I love the TV show. The first season made about nine or 10 episodes, and I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic show. It was on I believe it was on Fox. They were switching around different time and day to promote the episodes. They kept switching to like airing Thursday night at 8 p.m. and Friday night at 10 p.m. and switching all the way to Sunday night at 7 p.m. So it kept switching around back and forth on messing around like the when the show airs, and that's because it was in the middle of a writer's strike. So it was a very difficult time. Anyways, uh, years go by. We have another Terminator movie called Genesis. I believe that's how you pronounce it. That one was, I'd say, it was a fun movie. Not great, but fun. It was a fun movie, but not so great. I really tried liking Genesis, and I don't know why I bought the Blu-ray movie. I think it's because I just was interested in buying it and rewatching it. I just wasn't really thrilled of it. Like for starters, the actor playing John Connor, I can't remember his name, but he was also in a movie called um, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and he did a great job in that movie. But him as John Connor, they should have found someone else to play him the part because I just think he was just a wrong actor to play that role. Then, oh man, I felt bad remembering other people's names. And yes, Arnold Schwarzenegger returned. That was a big excitement to see. But the actress playing Sarah Connor, gosh, it's gonna bother me not remembering her name. She was in Game of Thrones. Her name is Emilia Clarke. Emilia Clarke, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I thought that she did a great job playing as Sarah Connor. I didn't really mind her playing the part, but she did seem a lot. She looks a lot younger than what Linda Hamilton played as. Yeah, she looks. I don't know, but I think the casting overall was a bit off. Even though I was more excited to see Arnold returning as the Terminator, but overall, I just think the casting just fell off, and I just wasn't really thrilled with it. And then finally, we got Terminator Dark Fate, which is basically a reboot of the sequels. So basically, just watch one and two. First one, Judgment Day, and that's it. Don't watch anything else. Just watch those two movies and then jump to Dark Fate, which is the sequel that was meant to be seen. So that got me pumped for it. So to go back on Robotech, uh, that's what was kind of going on for the franchise. Uh, that the company was really struggling to get it up and rolling, but just was not able uh, to get it processed and bring the fans to put an interest of Robotech. And I don't know, I just felt that they should have um, I just felt like that they should have at least bringing back the shows so that everyone can like, oh, okay, this is something that I'd be interested to check out. But in this day of age, not many people really want to watch an older anime show that was made from the mid 80s, that it feels old and it feels off tone, and nobody really has a strong interest. Um, I even talked to some of the people about they should watch a couple of old retro anime shows, even at work. So, for those of you who don't know about Robotech, of what the premise is, um, I can't really think of the whole story of all, but basically it's like Top Gun with robots and aliens. That's basically it. Um, they even got incredible musical performances. Uh, they bring in this famous. Well, first, it starts out with a young girl that has a beautiful talent of her voice. And when she starts to sing, then a lot of people loved her performance and wanted to get popular. Just like in this day of age, when we first heard about Lady Gaga, we loved her performance and she became big. So, same way about we get to see this character, we get to see her grow as time goes by, and she became a famous celebrity. Let's see. Oh, they currently have a lot of Robotech series, but you can only watch it in Japan. For instance, uh, there are a lot of anime shows. There are a lot more Robotech series in the Macross Saga. However, you can only watch it in Japan. Uh, I was looking up to some other anime shows that I was like, I was watching clips of it here and there, and I stumbled across this one anime show. I was like, oh, cool. I wonder if I can get that one. And as I was watching a clip and I looked at the title, turns out that this anime show came out in 2007, and it's another a spin-off anime series of Robotech. I'm like, whoa, wait, what? There's an anime show from 2007 of Robotech? I didn't hear anything about this. And I just watched more and more clips of it, and I was like, oh my god, I want to buy this show. And so I looked it up on a website like Amazon.com and see if I can purchase it. And sadly, it's never been released in Japan, or it's never been released in America because it has to do with, which I have this note right here. It has to do with due to legal complications with international distribution. There was this big uh, argument and complicated situation of agreements of making a deal to have more Robotech series to be available in America. But which is really sad because there are tons and tons of more anime shows of Robotech. But in America, we can only get the Macross Saga, the Masters, and the New Generation. And we get like some of the anime movies of like Shadow Chronicles, and I believe we get the original anime movies of Robotech, like Robotech the movie 1 and 2 from I think it came out sometime like in the late 80s. But that's all we have. And and another one. called Macross Plus, which is a spin-off. I started watching that one, and they made two versions. One is like an OVA series, which they made only 4 episodes, and they're about 40 to 50 minutes long. And believe it or not, the casting caught my attention. Uh, the voice actors that appeared were let's see, I can think of the three big ones. Um, Steve Bloom appeared in the show, and David Hayter was also another one. Yeah, for those who don't know, I think David Hayter also did the voice of Snake from Metal Gear Solid. And Steve Bloom is hugely known for doing voice acting for years. So he's been doing voice acting for the past 20 to 30 years, and which he got me inspired for doing uh, voice acting that one day I would love to do in the future. And another big actor, Bryan Cranston, also appeared in Macross Plus, which I was like, Breaking Bad is doing anime? So I did mention a while back from my previous podcast episode that Bryan Cranston did the voice of Fei Long, which is a Street Fighter character that he played from the Street Fighter 2, the animated movie. So if you check that out, I believe you can still watch it in today. You can still watch it on Amazon Prime for free, and you can still watch it. And I believe at least today of November of mid-November, you can still watch it. For those of you who have not seen Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, please go see it. It is such a good movie. It's one of my all-time favorites. And then let's see. Oh, I believe this anime show I was mentioning about that came out in 2007, I believe, or maybe later than that. It's called Macross Frontier. Um, it turns out it's a lot like the original series of Macross Saga, but it's basically a reboot slash sequel. So if you check out Macross Frontier, you'll be able to watch clips from of this anime show. You may get lucky on YouTube to find full episodes, but it's in Japanese, not in English, because to get it in English, it's going to be a bit tricky because of legal complications and international distribution. Um, Especially Macross Frontier. There, I think the person that created that show refuses to have it available in America. I believe that's the complication that we still are going through right now. Um, I would say it's sometimes really struggling that I just wish that we can have um, more and more Macross Saga series because Robotech, Macross, the Masters, New Generation, etc., and all that. Um, a lot of people don't realize that it is a really good anime show, and you'd be surprised at how well the animation is as well. So, as soon as you watch the Macross Saga, and you have to think about it because this was completely hand-drawn animation. No computer animated stuff whatsoever. It's completely hand-drawn. So as you watch it, it's amazing of back in the day that they have to work their butts off just to get it made. So watching this completely hand-drawn animation, oh yeah, you'd be surprised. So that's why I love watching old school retro anime shows, even retro video games. Oh my God, I'm such an uh, I'm such a old school person, even though I'm only like 26, 27. Um, but yeah, I am an old school kind of guy, and I still watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. I even own it on Blu-ray, and it's one of my greatest treasure I ever own. Owning the Next Generation on Blu-ray is I'd say one of the top 10 best physical purchases I've ever bought because it's one of my all-time favorite shows. So for the anime shows, that I was really hoping that that one day we get to see more Robotech series. Robotech has been a really big influence, and even my dad. My dad has been a huge Robotech fan when he was younger, and he gave me his this big art book. It was this big art book that he gave me. It's basically of all the histories, all the drawing artworks from like sketches and drawing boards and like ship models and characters. And he talked about going to this Anime Con convention back in the day, which was a really small event, and a lot of them were just incredible. And I was just seeing what the episodes here. So yeah, I was right. The Robotech, the Shadow Chronicles that I was telling you about, and a sequel called Shadow Rising. It was supposed to come out in 2009, but unfortunately, this anime called Harmony Gold. Harmony Gold owns Robotech series, so they own Macross Saga, Masters, and the New Generation. So they own the original shows, but they couldn't do a sequel, and they did not have a good agreement with Funimation Entertainment, so the sequel was abandoned. However, we're supposed to have a live action Robotech movie. I so hope that still happens. And it says back in the day, Tobey Maguire was eyeing the lead role for Robotech, for the Macross Saga. And I think that would be an amazing movie. Boy, that would have been such a great movie to check out, um, at least back in the day. Not sure about now, though, because I think I would want to see someone else playing the part. I don't want to get too much of the story of Robotech because basically there's like a whole history of Harmony Gold owning Robotech with huge complications and how many shows they've been trying to work on, and there's a lot of little bits and pieces here and there that they would discuss. So instead of me talking about it, go check out on YouTube, checking out just the history of Robotech, and I believe some guy from I think Toy Galaxy, I think from this YouTuber channel. I was watching a little bit of that, and he was able to break it down of the history of Robotech with the struggles, the legal complications, and they did toy merchandises and how the show got made. And feel free to check that out. And it's highly recommended for those of you who are interested to know learning more about Robotech. So for me, I'm just talking about how do I know about Robotech, and it's just basically I watched it, I binge watched it all day when I was back in my apartment, and just kicked back and watched the show, and I fell in love with it the first time I watched it, and then time goes by, I watched the Macross Plus, which I love that show, and I love the show so much. I'm gonna try getting the DVD, but it's a little bit tricky to find, especially now. But I was able to buy a CD soundtrack of Macross Plus. So if you go to YouTube, if they're not strictly copyrighted, if someone out there was able to manage to post just a sample of the soundtrack, feel free to check that out. Macross Plus. The soundtrack of that one is amazing, and I loved it. Into today's age of possibly having more Robotech, I would love to see a live action Robotech to happen. I think it would really bring back this excitement of to the fans, including me, since I'm a fan of Robotech. But I would think it would really light up of a bunch of newcomers, of a lot of the younger kids learning about Robotech. And I think it'll be a really amazing thing. Our next topic today is since I'm kind of running out of ideas for Robotech because I just kept hoping that we can have more someday. So for those of you who are listening out there for Robotech, or someone who is in charge, like Harmony Gold, if you're listening to this, please do a live action Robotech. Don't worry about the anime shows right now. You own the originals, which is important. But do your best for making a live action Robotech. I guarantee you're going to light up a lot of the newer comers for shine the light of going, hey, we got something I want to share with you guys. So please make it happen, and I guarantee you a lot of the younger kids have some interest. So let's say like we got a sequel for Top Gun. If that movie does well, then you guys should come in going, hey, we got our version of Top Gun. So please do that, guys. I just think it'd be a lot of fun. So now we're going to be discussing a anime review. Now this anime review I had to rewatch because I had to refresh my memory of a Lupin the Third movie that I bought on Blu-ray. Now this one I bought that is the Blood Seal of the Eternal Mermaid. This is an anime television special that in Japan they do a lot of anime television specials. Not just like a TV show itself, but they've done a lot of like anime movies, like TV movie specifically. So this one here has been released in America for the first time and is owned by Discotech, which I believe they produce and developing physical releases to have it available in America. And surprisingly, they brought back some of the original voice actors of Lupin the Third, and that got me excited because I've been always a fan of their voice acting talents. So to get you the story idea, it says that Lupin the Third has been tasked to steal a pair of jewels, hold the secret to an even greater treasure. I'm kind of reading this a little short story here. There are many upscales in Lupin's way, and they bump into a young girl named Maki. She's about a young, like 14-year-old girl that wants to become a thief. Then they stumble across this mysterious girl who doesn't die, that she's somehow immortal for some unknown reason, that she's part of this treasure. Then they introduce a villain named Himuro, who is the main villain of the movie. Later on in the anime movie, Lupin has a secret past that you get to see later on in the movie. Now, this is just a short story that I can give to you guys. There's not a whole lot that I can look it up to you guys, but it's basically a villain that wants to become the immortal. So that's basically what the story is about. But now, what do I think of the movie? Well, it was a bit difficult to give my thoughts and opinions. I was going to write it down and then have it memorized, but I think the best I can do is to give it my honest opinion. I absolutely love Lupin the Third. I've been a fan of Lupin the Third for a long time, ever since the first time I watched anime movies was The Castle of Cagliostro, which is a Lupin the Third from the 70s. And it's also Hayao Miyazaki's first anime movie that he ever directed. So Castle of Cagliostro was the very first thing I've ever watched. So for the Blood Seal, I personally loved it, even though it was just a special TV movie in Japan. But it was a nice, strong, solid story, and I really have no complaint. It's just like watching a very long TV episode. I would say I would definitely recommend checking this movie out. It's definitely, I would say it's not the biggest, like one of the greatest stories it's ever written. There are multiple different TV movies. I think they've produced like maybe 40 I could be wrong. I believe they produced about closer to 30 to 40 TV movies, and some of them have been released in theaters, but only in Japan. Yeah, I absolutely love the movie, and I think it's got great action. It really started out a really good action scene at the beginning of the movie, and of course, Zenigata, always the silly guy, and Fujiko always choosing different sides so that she can have money to herself. It's basically a movie for fans. If you're a fan of Lupin the Third, and as a fan, I would definitely check this one out. It's definitely funny. It's definitely a nice, different story to it. It's not the same. It doesn't feel the same. It feels different, and I respect that very much. And there are many, 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 many other Lupin the Third titles out there, and I really think that this one I would definitely buy on Blu-ray since this was been released quite recently, like not too long ago. This came out back in July, and I was able to get a hold of it as soon as it came out. I would say this is definitely something I would recommend to the fans that they would love very much. It's got this, well, I want to say it's like any pros and cons. I said a lot of good things about this one, but I can't think of anything bad about this one. It's basically for fans. I don't know. I think the villain for Himuro was kind of a slacker in some way. Like as you watch him in the movie, he seems a bit like a slacker kind of way. He doesn't get all the fun until the end, which you'll see. But overall, he just feels kind of, I don't know. I just think the villain was a bit boring because I've seen many other villains from Lupin the Third, and he's kind of Himura. Yeah, he's a bit of a downhill of Lupin's villains, like this arch nemesis kind of way. So for that one, I would say that's my only downside is the main villain is a bit of a bummer, and I do not like the tone of it. Him as a villain, to be honest. But overall, it's mainly for the fans, and it's something I've always loved Lupin the Third a lot as a kid, so I really have no problem for it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that should be a wrap of my podcast episode. Now, I want to inform you that this is going to be my last episode for this season. I am sad to tell you, but this is going to be the end of the season 2. Season 3, I'm going to be do some switching around and making some changes as I go along, and I'll only be doing like a little more easier steps as I go. So I'll be kind of getting my podcast like a more separate audio instead of make it all into one. Making it all into one, it's just kind of a little tricky and so forth. So I decided to do something just a little bit different. But it'll be work in progress, and I'll be improving as I go. So I promise you, I will make it better. But as of right now, this is my last episode for season 2. So it's sad, but I gotta put to a close somewhere. I will be posting my announcement later on when I'll be posting more YouTube videos and so forth. But I'll be doing a couple of bonuses here and there just to mess around. So don't worry about that. But I will tell you when season 3 will be announced, and I would gladly be doing more on YouTube as well, with just a little tweaks and turns, and hopefully it does not hurt your guys' viewing pleasure. So yeah, without further ado, so that is the end of season 2. So I will see you in season 3. This is Zap Chat. I'm your host, Zach Probst. And again, thank you for listening, and good night.